Chapter 1676. Chaou Base Destroyed. Black armor descended directly on Tianhai City. He looked down at the city from a high altitude and could clearly notice countless eyes focused on him. However, black armor didn't care about the eyes of these ants. Zhang Yi and Shang Daowen stood cautiously above the Tianhai TV tower, their eyes as sharp as knives. At this time, the two of them had already pulled up their guard, just waiting for the enemy in front of them to enter. Without saying a word, black armor stretched out his right fist towards the land under his feet, and then punched the ground fiercely. A nearly transparent black light burst out from his fist, turning into a huge sphere, and fell to the ground in an instant. The huge energy directly touched the ground of Tianhai City. Bow. At first there was no reaction, but the power sank into the deep land like a mud cow into the sea. But the next moment, an incomparable power, a terrifying impact force that was so suffocating, surged out from under the earth and soared into the sky. From the southeast coast of Tianhai City, the earth was directly overturned, and the heavy land was blown up like dust. This force came from the direction of the sea and headed straight to the northwest of the entire city. Zhang Yi's pupils shrank suddenly, and his breathing became a little faster. Because the punch of the Hades gatekeeper actually directly blasted out the Chaou base buried deep on the coast of the East China Sea. The huge base was shaken out from hundreds of meters underground. It was a huge reinforced concrete building. Tianhai City now has 3 remaining bases, and the Chaou base is located on the seaside. Unexpectedly, the Hades gatekeeper could actually detect the movement under the earth and dig them out from the ground. Zhang Yi took a few deep breaths, and he knew that the entire Chaou base was finished. There were still tens of thousands of humans alive in the Chaou base, and Chen Jingguan led a group of aliens there waiting for the end of the war. However, at the moment, their only ending was death. Zhang Yi felt a little sad, but he quickly covered up this emotion in his heart. War will definitely kill people. If he is affected by sadness, he and the rest of the people will die in the next battle, and the entire Huashu country may fall. In the Chaou base that was shaken out from the depths of the earth, there was a cry of fear. The gatekeeper of the underworld just glanced at it lightly, then stretched out the finger of his right hand, and shot out a sharp black light, penetrating the thick defense layer. Then, the surging sea water rushed in, and in less than 5 seconds, it submerged the Chaou base. In the Chaou base, tens of thousands of people died, so simply. Everyone saw this scene, but no one said anything, and no one said to rescue them. They must be patient, otherwise the long-term arrangement will fail. Zhang Yi took a deep breath, then he raised his big sniper, Thunder, aimed at the gatekeeper of the underworld, and released his powerful attack again. Boom! A black light penetrated the space and locked the head of the gatekeeper of the underworld. But such a blow was nothing to the terrifyingly powerful Hades gatekeeper in front of him. His face was covered with a thick black mask, so his expression could not be seen clearly, but his eyes clearly revealed a strong sense of mockery. Swish! Facing Zhang Yi's attack, he did not take any evasive posture, but rushed directly towards him. A black light enveloped his whole body and hit Zhang Yi's attack, actually smashing Zhang Yi's attack. His speed was too fast, and Zhang Yi could not even catch his figure. He could only use the predictive ability of tracing all things to predict his next move. So fast. The speed was so fast that Zhang Yi couldn't help but look solemn and instantly turned on his own 100 times acceleration. 2 seconds later, the Hades gatekeeper appeared in front of Zhang Yi and Shang Daowen. Facing the two, he used an extremely domineering attitude and a simple punch to blast directly. The simplest but also the most violent way of attacking. The fierce black light burst out from his fist, forming a huge black star in the sky, and it fell at a high speed. Zhang Yi and Shang Daowen had already seen his attack ability just now, which was a terrifying power that was enough to destroy 100 miles in a single blow. Even the two who had reached the level of the Black Chariot were far behind in terms of attack power. And not only was the power strong enough, but the speed was also unimaginable. If it weren't for Zhang Yi's time ability, He wouldn't even have the chance to open the dimensional door and escape. "Stop him!" Zhang Yi shouted loudly, with a sharp look. He raised his hands high, and the 3,000 dimensional doors of the myriad things no longer formed an inherent barrier around him, but all blocked in front of him. On Shang Daowen's body, white light shot up into the sky, which was his extremely powerful telekinesis. "My thoughts are eternal." A powerful telekinesis formed a barrier, and together with Zhang Yi's dimensional door, it blocked the huge dark star. A huge black star descended instantly, crushing hundreds of Zhang Yi's dimensional gates with unstoppable force. Zhang Yi's face changed. He knew that the gatekeeper of Hades was very powerful, and he had made sufficient preparations. However, when they fought again, he found that he had greatly underestimated this terrifying existence. 2 years ago in the Battle of Xingdao, when the gatekeeper of the underworld attacked, he did not even use 1/10 of his strength. "Hold on," Shang Daowen said to Zhang Yi in a deep voice. The two of them were the main defenders of this battle. If their defense was broken so easily by the other party, then the whole plan would be over. "I know," Zhang Yi shouted in a low voice. As the dark stars continued to fall, chaotic light began to emanate from his eyes in different spirals on the left and right. The source of the power of the aliens is the aliens themselves. The human body itself is a huge treasure, and the power of the human heart is endless. Therefore, instead of seeking more powerful power from the outside world, it is better to first explore your inner potential. This is what Zhang Yi learned from Wang Shouren's Xinxuan. Time does not go out, space is king. And how powerful can the power that bursts out when my two powers of time and space are combined? Zhang Yi also awakened the power of time and space one after another, but in the past, he used them separately and never thought of combining these two powers. It was not until he reached the Black Chariot level and obtained the psychology that he began to slowly develop this combination of skills. Of course, I can see through the trajectory of time, but can I trace back to the origin of all things? If I can do that, wouldn't it be possible to return everything to its origin, including the enemy's attacks? Chapter 1677 9 Palaces and 8 Formations. Facing the overwhelming blow from the Hades gatekeeper, Zhang Yi finally showed his ability to combine time and space. His eyes flashed with spirals of light in different directions, and the two forces mixed together, blocking the attack from the sky. Time and space countercurrent. An invisible force was released from his eyes. There was no gorgeous burst of superpowers, but the attack of the Hades gatekeeper falling from the sky seemed to be melted by something in an instant, showing signs of disintegration. This is Zhang Yi's new ability, Time and Space Countercurrent, which can reverse the enemy's attack and dissolve all the opponent's attacks. If it is a being with lower strength than Zhang Yi, this move can instantly invalidate the opponent's ability. However, facing the extremely powerful Hades gatekeeper in front of him, it only weakened his attack power. However, Zhang Yi's goal has been achieved now. After absorbing the origin of Ruanping and Silver Armor, Thunder, Zhang Yi's superpower index has reached 28,000 points. This is because the time is still relatively short, and the power accumulated in the body will slowly merge with Zhang Yi in the years to come. However, even so, the combat power close to the level of Bishop Bai and the newly comprehended skills finally allowed him and Shang Daowen to block the attack of the Hades gatekeeper. Zhang Yi and Shang Daowen looked at each other, and a look of relief flashed in their eyes. Although the Hades gatekeeper in front of them was indeed terrifyingly powerful, they were not completely powerless to fight back. The Hades gatekeeper himself did not seem to have thought that his attack would be blocked by two humans. He folded his arms and looked down at them with interest, his eyes even falling on Zhang Yi. Time and space, two powerful forces, are actually concentrated in the same person. Even in our Wulwan tribe, there are only a handful of geniuses like you. He spoke to Zhang Yi in a low human language. But it's a pity that you are not one of us after all. If you don't die today, I can consider making you into a war puppet. Zhang Yi thought of a former opponent, the Dragon King. The strange appearance and grief and despair of the opponent before his death are still Zhang Yi's nightmares. Zhang Yi raised his head and shouted to the gatekeeper of the underworld, "Do you really think you have won?" The gatekeeper of the underworld sneered. "You fought so hard but only blocked my attack. Are you very proud?" To him, it was just a random punch. Zhang Yi and Shang Daowen's performance certainly surprised him, but it was just like a small ant being stepped on by a human but not dying. "No, the effect we want has been achieved." Zhang Yi's mouth curled up slowly. He has never been so arrogant as to think that he and Shang Daowen can stop the terrifying evil spirit in front of him. At the same time, seeing that the gatekeeper of the underworld had been led to the hinterland of Tianhai City, Ho Tu, who was sitting on a train running in the ethereal place, spoke slowly. "Let's start." After receiving the order, the Tiangang people who had already dispersed to various areas around Tianhai City closed their eyes without hesitation and sank into the earth like stone pillars. The leader of the Tiangang people, Song Ming, who was in his 40s and had a small goatee, put his palms together and activated his ability. Openly divide the 8 trigrams and secretly combine the 9 palaces. Zhuge Wuho helped me. This formation will not trap thousands of troops, but only one person in the formation. In Shengjing district, the most elite among the Longming guards are the 36 Tiangang people. Such a special force. Its leader Tiangang star Song Ming has an extraordinary ability, 9 palaces and 8 formations diagram. Combined with the power of the 36 Tiangang, it can form a rule system, trapping array ability to lock all enemies in the maze. However, this ability has a huge flaw. When the ability is activated, a large number of aliens are required to participate in it, and they cannot move. If these 36 people rely solely on their own abilities to trap an Epsilon, it is possible. But if they trap the gatekeeper of the underworld, it is easy for the other party to launch a wide-area attack ability and kill them directly. However, if they cooperate with Zhang Yi's 5 beheading teams, they can form an excellent effect. The 9 palaces and 8 formations diagram appeared as Tiangangsing's ability was activated. In an instant, the sky above Tianhai City changed, and thick dark clouds spread, instantly covering the entire city. Everything was hazy and invisible, and only Tiangangsing himself could grasp the movements in the formation. The 8 formations diagram can trap thousands of troops, and the trapping formation and the maze formation are combined. The enemies inside will lose their way and form a wrong judgment of space. The gatekeeper of the underworld saw the changes between heaven and earth, but did not show any surprise. Instead, he said, "Oh," with interest. It seemed that watching these tiny humans struggling to death was pleasing to him. Life is so great that even ants cherish their own lives. But, he opened his arms, "The more you struggle, the more I can feel the joy of destroying a civilization." The terrifying black energy quickly emerged from the arms of the Hades gatekeeper. He gave people the feeling that he was a human-shaped god of death of love, ready to burst out with terrifying power to destroy everything at any time. But at this moment, he suddenly heard the roar of the array vehicle. The Hades gatekeeper, who originally wanted to launch an indiscriminate attack on the surroundings and directly wipe out the array setter, suddenly felt a faint breath of danger. The strange sound aroused his vigilance. Subconsciously, he punched the area in front of the left. A large area of fog was directly blasted away, and unexpectedly, in the void, a huge black train running in the air appeared. 4 figures were squatting or standing on the train. Chaos Zhang Yi, Emperor Go Chun Li Changgong, Thunder God Purin Alexei Ivanov, and Xidagarba Shang Daowen. Inside the train, a girl in black was sitting by the window, holding a carving knife in her hand, carving the prototype of the Hades gatekeeper. Facing the domineering knife of the Hades gatekeeper, Zhang Yi did not make a move, but Li Changgong, the weakest one, rushed forward and with a swish, the bright long knife was pulled out directly from his waist. "I am God's will. Everything in the world will be cut into pieces in front of me." Li Changgong's blade cut through the sky, and the gatekeeper of the underworld's domineering attack was instantly cut off when facing this unsolvable absolute rule. Zhang Yi's philosophy is, absolute defense is the best attack. Li Changgong's philosophy is exactly the opposite. He believes that attack is the best defense. His ability, as long as it is used properly, can produce extremely amazing results. This is why he was still included in the Crusade team, even though he only had an ability index of 18,000 points. Chapter 1678, Go All Out. Li Changgong slashed through the air with his sword, directly splitting the attack of the Hades gatekeeper. After the attack, Zhang Yi and Shang Dawen carefully asked him to stand behind everyone. Although his attack power was very strong, his defense was very weak, and he could easily be killed by the Hades gatekeeper. Li Changgong also hid behind several people very tactfully, and the corners of his mouth raised, and he couldn't help but smile. For the first time, there was a look of astonishment in the eyes of the Hades gatekeeper. My attack was blocked. This seemed to be beyond his imagination, but he soon understood it. It seems that Guy has some ability to invalidate the attack. He stared at Li Changgong on the train and said slowly, "But all this is just a meaningless struggle." A terrifying black power suddenly rose from his body, turning into 100,000 sharp swords in the sky, filling the entire sky. Then, he pointed his right hand at the train, and the sky full of black swords hung down, heading straight for Zhang Yi and others. Li Changgong was dumbfounded. Such a dense attack. I can't stop it alone. And once any sword falls, the terrifying power contained in it is enough to kill it instantly. Ghost train, transfer. Shang Dawen said slowly.
Boom.
The ghost train traveled through the void, and seeing that the black sword rain covering the sky and the sun was about to fall, it disappeared in the mist like a ghost. Boom! The terrifying sword rain fell on the land of Tianhai City, ruthlessly destroying the land and destroying everything on the ground. The gatekeeper of the underworld did not see the shadow of the train, nor could he feel the fluctuations of space. Is it a space-based ability user? What he said was right. The driver of the ghost train was Tian Jiesheng Daisheng. He had already filled Tianhai City with space coordinates. With the help of this 9 palaces and 8 arrays, he can use his ability to let the train travel through the void and instantly transfer to other locations. In this way, he can avoid the attack of the gatekeeper of the underworld. Although everyone avoided the terrifying attack of the Hades gatekeeper, they were still frightened by his power. This kind of strength is not at the same level as us. How can we restrict him? Li Changgong raised his doubts. Zhang Yi said, "Don't worry, this level of existence will be greatly restricted even when moving on land. At least his strength cannot be fully exerted, and he will not stay for too long. From the beginning, our goal is not to kill him, but to delay him for a long enough time." His eyes sank, as if he had made some kind of determination, and said, "And if it really comes to the point where it cannot be reversed, we still have one last trick to try." Just when the Chaou base was destroyed, Zhang Yi had already asked Yang Xinxin to notify the other 2 major bases to flee Tianhai City immediately. Even the underground shelter is not safe at this time. Only by fleeing Tianhai City can there be a possibility of survival. Because in the next war, I am afraid that every inch of land in the entire Tianhai City will have the same fate as the plowed fields. Got it, brothers? Yang Xinxin directly notified the person in charge of the Qingpu base and Yangsheng base at the time. Xing Tian, Xiao Honglian and others had been taken into Muyan's shadow space by Zhang Yi, and the 2 major bases were temporarily managed by others. The shelter is no longer safe. Retreat immediately and flee to the north while the enemy has no intention of targeting you. You must be quick, otherwise everyone will die. Yang Xinxin's tone was very cold. She didn't care much about the lives of others. It was just her brother's order, and she was strictly following it. In the 2 major bases, after learning that the Chaou base had been destroyed and everyone had died tragically, panic was spreading. However, no matter Zhang Yi or anyone else, they had no time to take care of them. Fortunately, the base was well prepared, and there were many snowmobiles. Under the arrangement of the temporary commander, a large number of people fled to other cities in the north. On this ghost train, Ho Tu was carefully carving a puppet of the gatekeeper of the underworld. At this time, the appearance of the gatekeeper of the underworld was already in her sight. The power of heavenly God Wei, observe its form, has been achieved. Ho-Tu held the puppet tightly, with a dark light flashing in her eyes. A little puppet with a bad character. It's causing trouble everywhere. Tie him up with chains. As soon as she finished speaking, the puppet in her hand fell to the ground, and under her feet, the carriage had turned into a dark, deep pool. The puppet fell into it without making any sound. Daisheng drove the train and continued to travel through the void. The sound of chains rang in his ears, clattering. Two huge demons, the black and white impermanents, stood up from the carriage. In front of their huge bodies, the whole train looked like a toy. Zhang Yi and others saw this scene, and they couldn't help but feel a little more expectant. Ho-Tu finally made a move. Zhang Yi also wanted to see what kind of existence this legendary #1 in the Chinese Su kingdom had. Power?
Boom.
The ghost train emerged from the void again, and the black and white impermanents followed the chain of fate and came to the gatekeeper of the underworld. The 6 reincarnations have their spatial limitations. But with the ability of the Hupu, Ho-Tu can keep traveling in the void so that the gatekeeper of the underworld is always within her ability range and not be confirmed by the gatekeeper of the underworld, so as to kill him instantly. The lower half of the black and white impermanence is a little illusory, but the huge body begins to surround the gatekeeper of the underworld on the left and right. The gatekeeper of the underworld felt a force of fate locking him, and facing the 2 huge demons, he did not hesitate to attack. The 2 fists covered with armor exuded a monstrous energy and blasted directly at the black and white impermanents. The 2 light waves penetrated the void directly, and even spread to the area outside the Bagua formation, causing the ocean to churn. But there was no way to deal with the 2 demons. The black and white impermanents tied the soul-binding chains to his body. From beginning to end, the gatekeeper of the underworld had no means of resistance. A heavy sense of restraint enveloped his body, as if he was really tied to shackles that could not be broken. The power of the curse? I see. The gatekeeper of the underworld smiled. It's just such a childish ability. It's meaningless to me. Even if I am entangled with thousands of shackles, I am still invincible in the world. After Ho-Tu finished all this, she said to Zhang Yi and others lightly, "These are all I can do now. It depends on you next. According to our plan, I just need to make him shed the first drop of blood. Then the battle is over." Chapter 1679 Atheist. The moment Tianhai City was shrouded in fog, the elite troops of the Wulwan Empire, following the gatekeepers of the underworld, also arrived in Tianhai City. They looked at the huge fog in front of them and instantly realized that this was a method arranged by humans in advance. How could they judge that we would attack the cities? Giant Blade's silver armor asked puzzledly. As he spoke, he was about to rush into the fog. But soon someone next to him stopped him. This is very wrong. Humans are very cunning creatures. Since they have made sufficient preparations, they must be targeting us. Don't go in yet. The black and white commander with the ability of Storm flew forward. Facing the huge fog that enveloped the entire city in front of him, he took a deep breath and then suddenly blew out a terrifying gust of wind. The huge storm fell from the sky to the ground, circling like a dragon, and then rushed into the fog of Tianhai City. But the fog that should have been blown away did not react at all at this moment. This is not ordinary fog, but a manifestation of ability. Blood-tied silver armor walked over and waved his hand in the fog, but found that the fog did not move at all. "Is it light?" Giant Blade asked. "What should we do? Should we go in?" Before he finished speaking, a fierce attack suddenly broke through the air from a distance. It was a golden flame, shooting straight at his body. Quack! Giant Blade turned around suddenly, and with a single slash, he separated the extremely hot flame from midair. The flame fell into the sea, and the seawater within a radius of more than 10 miles immediately boiled. In the distant sky, a golden crow was flapping its wings, staring at Giant Blade with hatred in its eyes. On his back, Black Emperor, Chen Xuanba stood with his chest folded in a dark green military uniform, his eyes boiling with murderous intent. From other directions, all the aliens of the joint forces who were originally waiting for this battle appeared. Chaou whispered, "Very good, now they are all here." This time our surprise attack plan failed. Although he said so, there was no impatience in his tone. Because in this battle, their great marshal was personally on the scene. Therefore, there was absolutely no possibility of failure. Giant Blade sneered and raised the huge scimitar in his hand. "It's just in time, they are all here, and we don't have to look for them everywhere. Just in time to kill them all. One battle to destroy the country." Giant Blade raised the scimitar in his hand and aimed it at Han Shanzhua and Chen Xuanba in the sky in the distance. "Those two guys escaped from my hands last time. This time I will kill them with my own hands." As soon as he finished speaking, he flew directly towards the two, and his deputy general, the black and white commander Frost, followed closely behind. In the ocean, the roar of sea beasts continued to sound. The combination of Xuanwu and Cadiles stared at the four sea beasts in silver armor. The sea beast smiled coldly. Being provoked by humans in this way, he would certainly use his strength in this battle to prove the inviolability of the Wulwan tribe's majesty. Roar! He roared to the sky, and the sound waves spread along the sea surface, forming a huge tsunami that swept away. A moment later, he turned into an extremely huge red sea beast, and with a boom, he fell into the sea and rushed straight to Xuanwu and caught allies with his deputy. The two silver armors had already selected their opponents, and the human aliens were very tacitly leading them to the area outside Tianhai City, with the purpose of creating opportunities for Zhang Yi and other members of the beheading team to delay the gatekeeper of the underworld. On the other side, after Juegua and Luo Zhu emerged, they turned into the perfect form of master of the cemetery forest, but faced smoke, with the appearance of a furious King Kong. Finally, it was Newton and Canero who attracted Blood Tide to the neighboring Linhai city. The purpose of humans was very clear to Injia and his men. But they didn't care because, in their opinion, it was extremely stupid for a mere human to want to be an enemy of their great marshal. After the silver armor, Blood Tide, and the black and white commander, Nian, arrived in Linhai City, facing the combination of Newton and Canero, they directly said sarcastically, "No matter how you resist, you can't stop us from destroying this country. The ending has already been determined and cannot be changed." Newton's expression was cold. He pushed his glasses, and the lenses flashed with a cold light. "What gives you such confidence?" "It's strength. In the face of absolute strength, all calculations are meaningless. For you humans, our Wulwan tribe is like a god." Blood Tide raised his hand and pointed his index finger at Newton. "Soon you will understand how ridiculous your behavior is." Newton said nothing, but raised the huge and strange hand cannon in his right hand. "Sorry, I'm an atheist." As soon as the voice fell, the trigger in his hand was pulled, and a terrifying force suddenly gushed out. The Ypsilon-class aliens had each chosen their opponents, and the remaining hundreds of blue-armored aliens were not idle at all. They looked at the huge city shrouded in fog before them. After analyzing the terrain, a captain made a direct judgment. The enemy created such a terrain. Although they cannot harm our invincible Grand Marshal, we have to race against time when operating on land. Now, immediately clean up all areas around the city. Destroy the aliens or devices that created this foggy area. Hundreds of aliens with more than 9,000 points are only junior soldiers in the Fog Valley Army. But looking at the human world, they are all strong men at the level of investigation captains. If the Ypsilon-level aliens do not take action, they can sweep the entire area. At this time, Xiao Lai appeared in front of them with almost all the aliens with more than 9,000 points in the entire Huashu Kingdom. "Now we will take over this battlefield." Xiao Lai held a huge black gun in his hand, and his cold eyes swept across all the blue-armored warriors. He raised the gun in his hand, aimed at the blue-armored warrior in front of him, and pulled the trigger. Weapons blessed by Metal Frenzy, Even the most ordinary pistols can burst out with powerful power. What's more, the appearance of the Ypsilon class on such a battlefield is basically a dimensionality reduction strike. However, the expected killing did not begin. Because just when his attack was about to fall, a huge figure suddenly emerged from the sea, with a black light flashing, and bounced off Chaou Lai's attack. After Chaou Lai saw the huge figure clearly, he couldn't help but shrink his pupils, and the shock in his heart was beyond words. That huge body, that exquisite and smooth body like porcelain, was clearly the blue dragon that was rumored to have died in battle. Chapter 1680, Fighting. At this time, Qinglong had lost his original appearance. His whole body was black, and he maintained the posture of a huge weak water-glass dragon god. But his eyes were full of cruelty, without any human emotions. Seeing this, Chaou Lai immediately showed an uncontrollable anger on his face. Qinglong, like him, was a soldier. In the few years after the end of the world, they spared no effort to defend their country. He could accept Qinglong's death in battle, but he could not accept that he was insulted by the enemy after his death. Qinglong, let me send you off for the last time. The black gun in Chaou Lai's hand changed dramatically with the infusion of his superpowers and turned into a strange dragon-shaped gun attached to his arm. He raised the dragon gun in his hand and roared, "Brothers, follow me and kill all these foreign bastards." The roar shook the sky, and the elites from all major regions of the entire Huashu country roared and rushed towards the troops of the Qingjia alien. In the center of the battlefield in Tianhai City, Huta used the power of Heavenly Godway to curse the gatekeeper of the underworld. Once the power of this curse hits the aliens below the Black Chariot, they will lose their combat effectiveness. However, the gatekeeper of the underworld seemed to be hardly affected. His eyes scanned the void, waiting for the ghost train to appear from the void, while trying to find a way out of the maze in all directions. But at this time, he was a headless fly in the eyes of Zhang Yi and others. Although he was flying in a straight line as he thought, he was always circling in the same place. The most terrifying thing is that this formation affects not only all directions, but also up and down, left and right. Even breaking out towards the sky is useless. This is a simple trap formation. If you want to leave, you can only kill the people on the ghost train first, and then pull out the cornerstones of the formation, such as the 36 heavenly gangs. The ghost train appeared again, driving diagonally in the void in a way that violated the laws of physics. Zhang Yi and Shang Dawen were in front, using the dimensional gate and the telekinetic barrier to make a defensive posture. The one responsible for the main attack was Alexei, the thunder god Purin. This uncle, who is usually very dull, was once just an ordinary lumberjack in the Arctic ice farm. But after the end of the world, he has grown amazingly, and now he is the top figure in Fremon's Palace of the Gods. The appearance of the ghost train was very abrupt, and the gatekeepers of the underworld could not predict from which direction they would suddenly appear, but Zhang Yi and others were fully prepared. The moment the train appeared, Alexei raised 2 huge axes for chopping wood with both hands. Ah, 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 ah. He let out a low roar like a bear in his throat, and a vigorous superpower instantly emerged from his body, turning into an extremely brilliant silver lightning, completely covering the entire ghost train. Boom! Above the sky, there were bursts of thunder, and the thunder that fell from the skies struck down and landed on his raised battle axe. The thunder drowned him, and the thunder attached to his body. His body swelled at a speed visible to the naked eye, so that the simple combat uniform on his body was directly burst, revealing muscles that were so strong that they were jaw-dropping. This is Alexei's ability, Tyrant, which belongs to the fighting style of the fighting nation. It is always the simplest, heroic, and exciting. Even facing this godlike existence whose supernatural power index may be as high as 40,000 points, he still chopped out his battle axe without fear. The battle axe in his right hand fell from the air, and a huge lightning turned into a half-moon-shaped axe blade, chopped down at the head of the Hades gatekeeper. Li Changgong hid behind Zhang Yi, ready to cooperate with them to launch a fatal blow at any time. Only one chance is needed. Zhang Yi and his ability can form an ultra-long-range sniper kill. It doesn't matter if the Hades gatekeeper can't be killed. Their goal is simple from beginning to end. Either delay enough time and wait for the punishment from the underworld to come, or let him shed the first drop of blood and then use Ho-Tu's ability to curse him. Facing the huge thunder battle axe, the Hades gatekeeper raised his head and waved his left hand gently.
Wow.
The huge thunder axe was crushed by him with one hand. Alexei then slashed the axe in his left hand towards his waist, but was also blocked by the Hades gatekeeper with one hand. Alexei's eyes were filled with endless anger. In his opinion, this was a great humiliation. Oh. His two arms, which were almost twice as thick as Zhang Yi's thighs, swung the thunder axe frantically. It was hard to imagine that such a heavy axe would leave a residual image when swung in his hands. Boom. Crack. Thunder raged in the entire space, and the frenzied lightning was like a lightning snake, roaring and biting at the Hades gatekeeper. Li Chonggong held the hilt tightly with his right hand. The posture of Ai had been made, and he had been ready for a long time, just waiting for a perfect opportunity to deliver a fatal blow. But the Hades gatekeeper seemed a little irritated when facing this attack and waved his hands. A black energy centered on his body and instantly swept in all directions. Indiscriminate attack. It directly shattered Alexei's thunder and then came towards the ghost train.
Get out.
Zhang Yi shouted hurriedly.
Shwa.
The ghost train disappeared directly into the void and went to other places. However, in the center of Tianhai City, a huge sinkhole with a diameter of tens of kilometers appeared again. If this continues, it will not be long before the entire Tianhai City will become a completely barren land, and no signs of human civilization will be seen. Zhang Yi was only glad that he had made preparations early and put away the Tianhai fortress. Otherwise, even the fortress built with barrier stones would not be able to withstand the attack of the Hades gatekeeper. Space-based ability users are not bad. After 2 or 3 attacks failed, the Hades gatekeeper was not anxious, but pinched his chin with interest and analyzed lightly. Escaped, right? I am not a space-based ability user, and I can't accurately lock the direction of their escape. Then, just destroy everything you can see, isn't it? He raised his head and no longer chose to find the direction in the fog, but continued to wait quietly for the arrival of a next attack. What should we do? Our offensive methods are just like tickling him. We said that we would win if we could make him bleed. But now it seems like a dream. Zhang Yi frowned and said, the gap in strength is indeed too big. Even if we have the advantages of time and place, it is difficult to do it. Shang Dawen had to admit this. But he immediately said, but at the moment, at least we have not put ourselves in a completely passive position. While he is still afraid of the power of heaven and has not used his full strength, we should use this gap to make him bleed.